All right, let's get to some Friday feedback. You can always email info@davidpakman.com, but we will feature comments from Facebook, YouTube, Substack, Spotify. You never know what will show up. We start today with Keegan Colton, who says about the potential release of the Epstein files, they need time to doctor the files up and redact names. You know, there's a lot of you are thinking in the same way about these Epstein files. We asked at Alita Grijalva, if inevitably you're going to vote to release the files, why try to delay it? What difference does it make? And her explanation was, well, I will ultimately vote if given that opportunity. Eventually she's going to be sworn in, but maybe by the time she's sworn in, they can come up with some other reason why the vote can't happen. But there's a bigger story here, and we addressed it a couple of weeks ago, which is if Republicans at this point came out and handed us files and said, here are the files, I think all of us would be extraordinarily skeptical that those are really the full, complete files. And so it almost seems to me that we would more reliably believe the files are the files and the full files if they leaked. But then even if they leaked, I think there would be some suspicion that it was a calculated leak and that it is not the full files. The point is, the transparency that we were promised has so obviously fallen by the wayside that I don't know that any of us would really believe when the files are out, if they ever are, that they genuinely represent the full scope of the files. I would be extraordinarily skeptical. Let me know what you think, but I think that message is absolutely spot on. Robert Sedler wrote on Facebook, the math works just fine, people. This is in regard to how Donald Trump and people around him will say they're going to reduce the price of something by 1,000%. And we explained, hey, that doesn't really make mathematical sense. Robert says the math works just fine, people. Example, I left my house and an hour into my drive at 75 miles per hour, I saw a cop. I reduced my speed by 654%. And within minutes, I was actually back in my driveway, having never even left yet. I think I broke time and space, but still a lot of fun. Yeah, when Trump says we're going to cut the price 700%, unless you are going to start paying people to buy the thing, the math of it doesn't make any sense. Now, I heard an explanation that a couple of MAGAs sent in. I'm going to tell you what it is. It doesn't really make too much sense to me, but here's what they say. This is the MAGA explanation for how Trump is right that he's going to reduce the price of something 700%. Imagine that the cost in the United States is, you know what? I don't even want to put this out. I'm actually saying I don't even want to put this out there because it's so painfully stupid that I don't even want to suggest it to anybody as an explanation. The math makes no sense. All right, from the subreddit, Combo Nickel says Marjorie Taylor Greene is a morally corrupt piece of human trash. This is very aggressive. While I understand there is some entertainment value with her virtue signaling about the Epstein victims and allegedly turning on Trump, I bristle at any attempt at covering anything she says or does with even a sliver of positivity. She is a truly irredeemable ghoul. We may face her in a national election in the future, and she doesn't deserve positive press of any kind to aid her in those efforts. Not a specific critique of this show, but I've seen friendly headlines about her from media on the left. Okay, so here's my feeling on this. This is a show where I report to you reality, or as close to reality as I can get, and when I don't get it right, you all correct it. It would be, I don't do stuff on this show where I say, I'm going to skip this story because of the indirect impact it might have. If Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting it right on something, that's newsworthy in my environment, so I tell it to you. I also tell you, as I did about Marjorie Taylor Greene, this doesn't make her an ally of the left. She's not a progressive. I make that clear. But what I worry about when I see posts like this is the idea that we shouldn't even, when she says the Epstein files should be released, she's right. And if I don't acknowledge that she's right, I'm really just kind of being dishonest and doing a disservice to everybody in the audience. So I think that we should be complete in our commentary, which is she's still completely whacked out on so many different issues. But when she gets something right, then I say she got something right. All right. Someone who uses the name Dyke Muff says about my health insurance plan, which I spoke about last week. Paying $747 a month for health care is insane. It would not be tolerated here in Canada. Yeah, and my plan, which is $747 a month, it's not even by any means the most expensive plan of people I know. And in addition to that, it doesn't even include copays. So the $747 a month is like $9,000 a year for my premium. But if you've got a couple doctor's visits a year with a $25 copay and a couple of specialist visits a year, I have my yearly eye exam, and I have a yearly dermatology appointment, and then I'm popping out $50 or whatever my copay is on that. So it is what it is in the United States when you are self-employed and don't have access to a group plan. It's horrifying. Nate Burr says, you are correct, David. Trump is doing what he campaigned on. Same thing with Project 2025. He said he knew nothing about it when we all knew that was the plan. Perhaps these people don't actually follow the issues and just root for them like they are a sports team. Yeah, I'm sick of the whole, we never imagined Trump would do this. Trump told us he was going to do most of this stuff. 90% of the left-wing ecosystem was saying it'll probably be worse. Some people tried to write some of this stuff off as just, it's Trump being Trump. He doesn't really plan to do a lot of this stuff. And we said, oh, no, he does. Believe him when he tells you that what he's going to do. And still, there are people now, Joe Rogan, Andrew Schultz, I'm forgetting some of the others from that ecosystem, who were saying, we didn't vote for this. Oh, Theo Vaughn is another one. We didn't vote for this. Well, you kind of did. And if you don't think you did, it's because you were willfully ignorant and just believing the obvious lies that Donald Trump was telling you. It's still good for them to figure out that they were lied to by those who were saying he's not really going to do it. It's still good to figure out that they got it wrong. It's still good to figure out that this is bad stuff to be doing, but they played a role in it at the end of the day. Eric says, social democracy is the best system. Most of the Western world has this except us. We have capitalism, which is a rigged system that favors the rich. Housing, healthcare, etc. are a mess. Well, Eric, first, we've got to be precise. Social democracy is a form of capitalism. I think that sometimes people get confused between social democracy and democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is a form of socialism. Social democracy is a form of capitalism. You can have, capitalism is on a spectrum. You can have completely unrestricted libertarian capitalism, which there is no evidence works. You can't find evidence from around the world that it works. And then you can have social democracy, which is a form of capitalism that uses regulation and social safety nets to ensure no one's standard of living falls too far, that education has minimum standards, that healthcare has minimum standards. Denmark, Sweden, etc. have implemented that. Sometimes people come to me and they say, sir, we've never seen, no. Sometimes people come to me and say, why don't you support full-blown capitalism? Or they'll say to me, why don't you support socialism? And my answer has been the same for a really long time. I support what I can defend empirically. I am not able to find instances of libertarian, unregulated capitalism that work well at the country level. I am also not able to find instances of socialism that work well at the country level. What the evidence points to as the system with the highest standard of living while maintaining innovation, high levels of self-reported happiness and satisfaction, people aren't uninsured, everyone can afford food and education, are social democracies. And so until we get evidence of a better system, that is where my orientation is, that social democracy is the best system. Now, sometimes people will come in and they'll go, real socialism has never been tried, or real communism has never been tried. Well, there's a couple of options then if you want it tried. One is you impose it via an authoritarian edict from a dictator. I'm against that because I'm not an authoritarian. The other option is you convince enough people that such a system would be great, such that they say it's what we want, and someone chooses to organize themselves that way. It may be difficult to convince people of it. Big Rax Russ wrote about my interview with Congressman Jake Auchincloss and says, when I hear Congressman Jake speak, it reminds me that it is really not that hard to answer questions in a clear and concise manner with statements that make sense. This tells me when other Democratic or just other politicians dodge a question, it's a conscious choice to give a non-answer. I think that this is a very good assessment. When I bring someone on the show and I ask them a question and they answer it in circles going around and around without a real substantive answer, and then I say, I don't really think I got an answer there. The question was, and I say it again, and they don't answer again. It's not that they're unable to answer it. It's that they don't want to. They've calculated that it's either politically disadvantageous to fully answer the question or there's some other reason that they don't want to answer it. And I think we should all remember that. They can answer the questions if they want. And if they're not answering the questions, it's not because they can't, it's because they don't want to. Lucas Futurist wrote on Spotify about the Democratic Party. Honestly, I'm feeling pretty pessimistic about the Democratic Party apparatus. The core anatomy is rotten due to long-term corporate puppeteering. One way I see this getting better at a national level is a mass wave of authentic candidates challenging deadweight Dems and beating them in their own districts. Additionally, Dems need to win way more positions in local and state government, especially election official positions. We need a framework that supplies the talented with hands-on support minus the dark money. Well, listen, Lucas, it's not a rainbows and ginger snaps assessment of the Democratic Party apparatus, but I think it's probably an accurate one. And it's both at the national and local level. And I mean, listen, look at all the interviews I've done recently with Democrats. There are Democrats who show up here. It's such a low bar, but there are Democrats who show up here and answer questions. As people pointed out, Jake Auchincloss did it. Jimmy Gomez did it. Tammy Baldwin did it to a degree. But a lot of the people that are coming on, they're not really substantively answering a lot of these questions, and it's just part of the problem. So I agree in large part with the diagnosis, and what the treatment needs to be can be debated. But at minimum, just having candidates who can be themselves and have that be good enough, rather than they have to craft a whole persona, that is a bare minimum. Answering questions and speaking substantively and directly to constituents and potential voters, that's a bare minimum, but there needs to be more. Send in your emails, info@davidpakman.com. Make sure you're getting my daily newsletter, substack.davidpakman.com. We'll see you on the bonus show.